mentees. And Kim, as you were even talking, my mind went to, we're working with the mentees, but how do we engage the parents? And so that's a conversation we'll have offline. But anyway, so tonight I have the opportunity to unpackage the series entitled Becoming the Best You, dealing with poverty. Now, this work comes from many, 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 many years of research by none other than Dr. Ruby Payne of the AHA Process company. She is phenomenal, and she has a group of professionals that work, throughout the year researching and keeping up and studying behavior patterns and looking at classes in America. And a lot of times people don't like that because for whatever reason, we live in this bubble to think that there's not classes in America. In reality, it is. And so tonight, I have the awesome privilege of sharing with you some information that I've gleaned over the years from her research, and we'll have an open dialogue. Fair enough?
Yes.
Sure.
And so what I want to start with is, can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
And so before we get started, I want to put this disclaimer out here. This is a no judgment zone. So anything I say is not, trying to evaluate one's behavior or their thought process. I feel like most of us wake up and we function from the life that we've lived and what we know and what we've experienced. But I want to challenge all of us tonight, as we dive into the Bridges Out of Poverty overview. I need you to take whatever you know, whatever you've learned, whatever you've experienced, and we need to put that on the left shelf. Okay, we're going to move it from over here, or we're going to take it over here. We're going to park it because the information we're going to dive into for our short time together is research-based. It's proven. I lived it and I live it. So, without disclosing my age, I can tell you in 1982, growing up in a small town in Mississippi, I was the recipient on what really poverty looked like. And what I mean by that is at 12 years old, 12 years old, I picked cotton from 6 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. in the evening. And I made $1. No more zeros added to it. And it was from that space that I understood I'm poor, because we had to work as hired hands to someone else to farm their land. And for 12 hours in 1982, not 22, 32, 42, or 52, in 1982, I made $1. And so I knew then that I was, my family came from what they knew, but that was not going to be my end. So our anchor, no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. And this is by Dr. James Comer. So I want you to understand that a lot of times when we're working when you're working with your mentees, we see it as, don't you want this scholarship? Don't you want a better way of life? Don't you understand I'm here to help you? I'm doing this for you. And this is my time. This is my free time. I could be playing golf, or I could be having lunch with my friends, or I could be doing something on my job and getting caught up on my work. In their minds, it doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. And so from that space, you have to first remove the benefit of the program and build a relationship first for them to be able to start thinking or receiving what you're talking about. Before we go any further, for a few people, I just want to hear from the audience without reading the dictionary term of poverty. When you hear the word poverty, what do you think of? Anybody? When you hear the word poverty, what do you think of?
For me, it was just growing up and going to the grocery stores, and when your parents told you you couldn't have a piece of candy because they might be overdrawn with the groceries, that was scary. And everyone else, you could see other kids grabbing candy, and you couldn't grab any candy.
Okay. And so someone said no money or job, way to get things,
Yep.
lack of resources. Lack of resources is going to be our anchor, because a lot of times we think poverty is just without money. And I promise you, when we get to the end of this session, if you stay with me and we get engaged, you'll see money is one of the 8 factors of living in poverty, because some things are not money driven. Okay, lack of resources, insufficient necessities. Awesome. Thank you guys for commenting. So for the sake of this, I'm just going to read it and we're going to expedite further. It says poverty is a state of being without, often associated with need. So that could be emotional. That could be emotional. You may, before the pandemic, you know, I did this for 6 years. Before the pandemic, you met with your mentee. Sometimes you're asking them, you know, so how are your grades? So how's everything going? And they're standing there looking at you like, if I really could tell you everything was going on, because emotions is a part of that lack of resource. Hardship across a wide range of circumstances. Poverty is hunger, poverty is lack of shelter, being sick and not being able to see a doctor. Hello, been there, done that, wore the t-shirt. And that's why I tell people, you can say what you want to say. Without insurance, you do not get the same level of care. Poverty is not having access to school and not knowing how to read. 20 years ago, I started a book club from a group of kids was running around in the streets on Saturday, took them to Books A Million. They were so happy to be a part, but they couldn't read. So how could they even begin to pass an FCAT or the latest whatever? And so it's an ever evolving thing. Let me put another disclaimer here. I'm not giving
Shandra?
this is you can't read, you can't do this. No, I am saying, oh, well, a person can do this because they grew up in poverty. No, because that day that I made that $1 after working in a field for 12 hours, I knew then that I had to do something different. I had to start connecting with different people. I had to start thinking different. My behavior had to be different. My mindset had to be different. So there was a many different things that took place for me to train. Says, Mom, I'm going to go get a job. You can have that entrepreneurship thing, because I remember, and I don't ever want to be on faith and hoping and praying. She told me, she was like, no, I'm going to get a job. You can run your own business. I'm going to wish you well, but I need that assurance. Right? Because she remember poverty of losing a child to illness brought by unclean water. Poverty is considered as powerlessness. So you don't have a voice, you don't have options, you don't have a wherewithal. Lack of representation and freedom, and poverty is a call to action for the poor and the wealthy alike, a call to change the world. That's why my motto is, if I could help someone along the way, then my living is not in vain. Even though I don't have all the money, I'm rich in resources. I'm rich in my influences. So the resources and the things that I have that's afforded to me that I've worked towards, and that is the thing that I have to share. I don't have a checkbook when I can just write out money. So everybody's story is going to be different. Questions or comments? Questions or comments? Okay, someone said they can't hear me. Is that the case for everyone? Can everybody hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
I had an issue too where you went out for a little bit, but
No,
I don't know
I can
whose
hear.
end it is. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
But I can hear you now. So
okay, all right. So it says poverty is a call to action for the poor and the wealthy alike, a call to change the world so that many more may have enough to eat adequate shelter, access to education and health, protection from violence, and a voice in what happens in their communities. And this is so huge because it's like if you look at the bigger picture, it may seem hopeless. It may seem like an uphill battle. But how I view it is, if you can change one person, you're changing a generation. And so I never want to make the situation at hand seem so insurmountable that there is no hope. If that one child, by you working with that one child, that could be the difference maker for that person's siblings, their family when they grow up. And so trust you me, you're needed, you're valued, but we just have to be a little bit more cognizant of how we can work with the mentees when you're running into, because let me tell you, I didn't have that problem where I had to keep calling the mentee, when we're gonna meet, when we're gonna meet, when we're gonna meet. You know, she was very willing, but sometimes you will run into that because you don't know what they're having to deal with before they get to school, while they're in school, and then a lot of times they're thinking about what they have to do when they get back home. Questions or comments?
Shandra, I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I want, for our mentors to, I think, understand more or be more aware of maybe, is we don't know what our kids are dealing with before they meet us.
Yes.
We've seen some really just really situations and homes and circumstances that you just shake your head and you just like, wow, you just don't realize.
Right.
How do we get to a place where, we can be more aware of that and be more cognizant of those difficulties.
Right. And a part of that is, it's funny you should say that, because a part of that is being able to look through the lens of which people look for in poverty. A lot of times we think about, like we already know what is poverty, the mental model. This is going to be this right here is going to be the clincher, and then we'll go for some research, and then because we're prone to think that everybody have equal access, and that is so not the case. Even as a business owner, if I told you some of the things I've had to go through and endure, you're like, no, not in Palm Beach County. Yes, in Palm Beach County, but because I've learned the hidden rules, so I've learned to navigate through them. So it doesn't stop because you're a child. It just keeps going, because we do live in a society that is class driven. Okay, the role of language, even learning how to when the kids can't communicate. I'm going to share some examples with you. It may or may not shock you, but it'll help you to understand, oh, that's why X, Y, and Z. And once again, we're not saying it's an excuse or a license to not want more or to do more, but I want to share, insight with you as to why a person may behave or think or not from that point of view. Questions or comments? So here, a mental model. A mental model is an explanation of someone's thought process about how the world works or how things work in their world. If I say to you, like I have here an apple, immediately somebody may think of golden delicious, someone else may think of red because it's all they've ever known, or someone else may think of green. It's still an apple, but the manner in which someone sees things, when you tell somebody that, going to a corner store, why would you go to a corner store and pay, $35 to get your check cash? They have banks. Yes, they do have banks. But I'm going to ask you a question. What time does the bank open? Anybody? What time does the bank open?
9 a.m.
9 a.m., right? Okay. What time do you think the average person in poverty goes to work?
6 a.m.
6,
6, 7, right? What time the bank close?
5
From
o'clock.
5.
2,
Five?
4, well,
Okay.
still 4. I mean,
What
4.
time do you think the average person in poverty gets off work?
6 or
7.
7 at night.
6,
What
7.
time?
Shift.
6, 7. Hello. What about
Mhm.
11 because they work a second job?
Whoa.
I told you I was homeless. I never said I had substance abuse. I never said that I was going through domestic violence. I was working 2 jobs and still homeless.
Mm.
I was underemployed. And if had somebody seen me before someone gave me a helping hand to stay in one of their spare bedrooms, I probably would have been on the news. Because I had an 8-month-old daughter sleeping in my car in one of the coldest times in Florida like it is now. See, poverty doesn't know a face. And when we deal with people and when we see people for their value and for what they're worth, you don't know what's in here. You don't know what they've had to be, what they had to process through. You don't know what they're fighting through. And so I'm not saying give them a pass. Well, just give everybody scholarships. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is when we're working with people, we have to find that common ground where you can build a relationship with them and let them know there is hope. One of the things that I'm just so grateful, and I'm going to tell you something, and it's probably going to shock you guys. And I promise you, I guarantee you, some of your mentees are going through the same thing. So my mom had 6 kids. You may say, well, why did she have 6? I don't know. But she had 6 kids. And she gave all of us away to our fathers. Right? To me, I would say stop at one like I did. But she didn't. She gave us to our fathers. So my dad, which what all of our dads did, took us to their parents, which was our grandparents. For 12 years, every day, I had to hear my grandmother. Now, this is somebody that's nurturing and loving, and just you're my seed. You're my son's child. I had to hear her say to me every single day, "You're never going to be anything." Because your mom didn't want you, so obviously there's something wrong with you. Your dad didn't want you because he brought you to me. So what are your hopes? I'm just going to make sure that you don't die. I'm going to feed you, and whatever happens, whatever you become, and you're probably going to get pregnant before you get 13. This was every single day. I'm not talking about Friday, Saturday, and she wasn't drunk. And you say, Shandra, that can't be. That was your grandmother. I wish it wasn't, but it was. And you know what my saving grace was? I had my dad's sister, she lived in front of my grandmother. She was an educator, and so she would try to go between her and my grandmother. But it was when I got to school, because the more she told me that I couldn't, it was something inside of me was like, this is not your future. And so when I got to school, I would read everything, and I became what my classmates called the teacher's pet. And they would speak life into me. They would say, Shandra, you're so smart. You're gonna be somebody when you grow up. Why am I sharing this part of my life with you? And I don't even know any of you on here, but one person, I think Carla, somebody, I know her from the community, I know her personally. But anyway, your mentorship is needed. You don't know what those children are going through while they're home. Some of them have mothers and fathers that are incarcerated or on substance abuse or working 2 jobs to keep food on the table and the lights on. How you are doing is the difference maker in their life. You're doing great. I don't care if they got a C. Ask them what you can do. What do they need to get to that B and that A? I promise you, you have no idea of the value you bring, but you have to find that medium and how to make it work. Questions or comments?
I have one. Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry about that. the past couple of students that I've had, I've been fortunate enough to have a relationship with them, where they tell me the struggles that they're going through, and a lot of them have to deal with poverty. And I think it's all about building a relationship with them and trying to relate to them. Not, like you said, not everybody is going through poverty or have gone through poverty, but it's building a relationship with them. That way they can open up and not feel so embarrassed about the situation that they're in.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we're going to talk about that affirmation at the end, because sometimes people just need to be affirmed. I told you I used to do a tutoring program, and people always was amazed, like, what are you doing so different? I said, it's called the big C. And they would be like, what is that? Confidence. You can't measure confidence, but a lot of kids didn't have it because, let me tell you what would happen. They didn't have the latest name brand clothes or shoes. And so I'm gonna tell you something, because I know many people, I'm not saying you, that's the other mentors in the other state. Many people like to say, well, why they're even in this program? They don't need a scholarship. They got the latest Jordans on, they got the latest this on, they got the latest that on. Can I tell you something? A lot of times parents will go without, whether they're making the best choice or not. I have some reservations for that too. But sometimes it's because they don't want their kids to be picked on.
And I totally agree with you on that one. I really do. And it's a sacrifice because I've been there, I didn't grow up with a lot, and my parents had to work that extra an hour just to give me the latest shoes, just so their kids or we don't come home feeling some type of way. And then it could be a pair of shoes or whatever the case might be, but it also it impacts the student, the way they perform in school, sadly, but it does. And it's just
has a lot to do with it. It has a lot to do with it. And for me, let me tell you, trust me, I was, my daughter, she can tell you, she wanted her nails. I'm like, girl, please. I mean, no, we're not getting nails done. I need to pay this water bill. And for her, it didn't make sense. So you know what she did? She was like, well, Mom, I'm going to get me a job. So at 14, she was working. Yeah. And so it's not the point where we want to validate poor choices, but a lot of times we have to understand where those choices are coming from, right? And give you one more example. We're going to go to the next slide. So I used to run the Prosperity Centers for United Way, which was a first-time homebuyers program, and we would do matching money for first-time homebuyers. And so for the first 2 years, we were the national program. So they would fly all of the executives from United Ways around the world down to Palm Beach County, and they would use me. So Chandra, we hear you got 40 closings. This is 40 individuals that were either on public housing, live with their parents for years and years and years, that we transitioned to home ownership. And they thought I was going to give this long, big old speech about how I was able to do it. So tell us, what happened? I said, because I was able to relate to them, and I put off my judgment hat. Because when I would have people to come in because we had a conglomerate of different organizations, one person told me one day, Chandra, I went to Miss So-and-so house, and she had a big old flat screen TV in her living room, and it wasn't even any room in the living room for the television. And she was angry about it because she felt like they should have had a smaller television. And I said to her, I said, well, did you ask her why? She said, no, that wasn't my call. So me being the person I am, I just waited till the customer came in. We was talking. I said, so you met Miss So-and-so. She was like, yeah, whatever. And she was looking a little bit standoffish, but Miss Chandra, let me tell you what happened. I went and bought it. I think she bought it from Renner Center or somewhere, not making the best choice because we know the interest rates with Renner Center is high. But you know what she told me? She said, we had 3 shootings in our community in the last 2 or 3 months. And so I can no longer allow my kids to go outside. Once again, should she have purchased a smaller television? Probably so. But she got the big one. She says, for me, all of the kids can watch television in the living room, and not worry about being outside because I don't know when a stray bullet may hit them and kill them. Big difference, right? It was a big difference to me. Let me say that. Now to you, it may be like over the whatever. Questions or comments? Questions or comments? None? Okay, let's move forward. So draw a mental model. Which lens are you looking through? Rental community, homeowner communities, and marriages. You say, well, Shandra, that's hard to say, but tell me when you think of a rental community, what's the first thing come to your mind?
Apartments,
Apartments,
apartment unit.
a lot of apartment units. What else? Do you
Neighbors,
see gyms?
Hmm.
Do you see gyms?
a lot of neighbors.
A lot of neighbors. What any amenities in the rental unit in the rental community?
Yeah, sometime.
Pool.
Sometimes. And what locations are those normally in? What geographical area?
Everywhere.
Cities.
Urban.
Suburbs.
No.
On both. It could be
Oh,
You also have
urban, it could be
rural.
cities.
Hold on. Go ahead. Hold on. Let me see. Maybe I should put it in the chat so I can get everybody.
No, that's not true.
Low income. Yeah.
No.
Unfortunately, you do
That's
not.
not true.
Yeah, you don't see that in every community.
Mm-mm.
But let me tell you, that's what you know. That's the lens you're looking through. And that is a good confirmation as to what I'm talking about right now. When we're working with our mentees, many times we're automatically think they have the same luxuries or the same resources or the same access as we do. And that's not the case. It is not the case whatsoever. Homeowner communities, generally, you're going to see them gated. You know, if they're not gated, they have, pretty much cut lawns and, very minimum negative connotations to them. Hold on one second. Somebody's putting something in the chat. Security guards, right. Thank you. Security guards, homeowners association. All of those things are going to be a part of that. And you're saying, well, why you keep talking about that? Because we have to have an honest conversation. That's what I'm trying to say. We need to have an honest conversation. And it's not an indictment on any person because like I said earlier, I thank you. I know it's a sacrifice, but in that same vein, we want to be able to give those mentees the best opportunity possible. And can I tell you one other thing? Just like I was telling you about my grandmother, sometimes the parents are not going to be as supportive because in their minds, they're thinking, my mom didn't help me. I didn't have anybody pushing me. Or you're going to go get an education, so you're going to leave the family. I know that may seem very weird, right? What parent don't want more for their children? But sometimes it's the fear of losing that connection. Because a lot of times when people do make it out, my family, I'm like, they know I'm just busy working. When they make it out, they don't think they're going to come back. Or if they make it out, they don't want to feel like they owe everybody something.
I've been, not me personally, but there's been situations where the parent is not as supportive because that student is their source of income, their source of, like, they lean on that student. And that's another reason that they're scared to let these kids go on to college and out of state.
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes they could be babysitters. Sometimes because when they move, public funds get cut off. And let me just be honest, and I think the reason why I'm so passionate about the work that I do in the community, and like I said to you, this is a no judgment zone, and I'm not here to step on anybody's toes, but the system we live in is so flawed. It needs much overhaul. Because let me tell you something. I told you I ran the first-time homebuyers programs, right? And so for some of them, I couldn't reach everybody, but for some people, it's no incentive, it's no incentive with yes, Sandra. Okay, somebody put something in chat. So let me back up and hope I didn't forget my thought. What I'm talking about tonight is not everybody. All pattern have exceptions. I am talking about poverty. So I want to, I don't want to lose the theme of tonight. So I'm not saying everybody that's a mentee is poor. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying everybody that's a mentee is in this situation. We wanted to come with a consensus of how we can best help those mentees that are. All right. So it's from that space we're talking about tonight. So what I wanted to say was, I've lost my train of thought. So anyway, I hope it'll come back to me. Hope it'll come back to me. All right. 1 second. So different types of poverty. So you have situational and generational. Situational could be the death of someone. Once someone dies and they may not left an inheritance. One of the things I tell people, being an insurance agent, insurance is not for the deceased, it's for the living. But many conversations I have with individuals, they'll say, well, Chandra, I just can't afford it. But if you have minor children, if you have, a business, those are some of the things you want to think about. It could be deployment. It doesn't have to be, it could be deployment. From deployment, when a spouse or a significant other is in the service, there's very limited resources that's left behind for the family. It could be a disease, sickness, illness. Many other things that can cause, and we know that right now from what we're living in. So sometimes situations cause poverty to exist. All right. And then generational. And for this brings me back to what I was getting ready to say. Some of our systems are not designed to help individuals. Because let me tell you something. When I was working with some of the individuals for the first time home buyers program, and they were on public housing, and the public housing, if they were not working, they didn't pay rent at all. But for our program, they had to be working because, we were going to match their income. And so in order for them to save money, they had to have some type of income, right? Unless they were disabled. And so it was like when they would increase this, we would pre-qualify them. And so that meant if they didn't qualify from the income that they had to increase their income. If I could tell you the number of families that would come in, individuals would come in my office and just boil their eyes out crying because they had to make a decision. Follow me carefully. They had to make a decision if they wanted to be a homeowner and plow through the obstacles that was set before them by society, or they were going to settle to live on public housing for however long it was available to them to not increase their rent. Because the minute their income increased, the rent increased. Chandra, why are you telling us this? What relevant is this to mentoring? What relevant is to poverty? It's a lot because it's a system. And if a system was designed to help you, why the minute you get a raise, they jack your rent up till it becomes unaffordable again? Why not say, okay, Mrs. So-and-so or Mr. So-and-so, your rent is going to be you got to increase in income by month 6, because now you're used to it. Your rent is going to increase by so much. Same thing with public assistance, where what we used to call food stamp, which is now SNAP. The minute most individuals to get a job, they cut it off. So you mean to tell me now I have a job and the kid's going to stop eating? Why am I saying this? I want you to be aware. This is America. It has nothing to do with politics. It's everything to do with what we live in every single day. Questions or comments?
No.
So what happens when a person is in generational poverty? That means it's 2 to 3 generations past. And so when you're working with mentees, and I'm not, being sarcastic about it, you're not just talking about that one individual. You're talking about their mom, their grandma, and most of the time their great grandma. that they're having to process through.
There was a comment from one of our mentors that's, she said, it's like, it keeps you in a trap. It's like in a cycle.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why being aware, you know, I can't eradicate poverty, but I can tell you one thing. I can take the knowledge that I have and the influence that I have, and I can get one this month, another one next month, another one next month. Do you know in a year, there's 12 people that I can help transition their mindsets to think differently. Will they become a millionaire? I don't know. But I sure can let them see how the systems exist in America and how they work around those systems. I can do that. So we all have a part to play. Questions or comments? So when we think of poverty, there's a mental model. The anchor is about relationships. So tonight, that's where we want to begin. It's the relationships. It's how you connect with them. It's the no judgment zone. It's the, I don't like to use the word sympathy. I would say empathy. Because I can't tell you that you can put yourself in that young person's shoes. But being present and now having this information, like, wow, I never thought of it that way. When I talked about what time the banks close and what time the people go, because when I tell people I'm homeless, the first thing they think, oh, how many kids you had? I only had one child. I was working 2 jobs. When you think of homeless, they automatically thinking somebody did something wrong to cause them to not have adequate, shelter. Not necessarily. And yes, sometimes people make bad decisions that cause consequences. So we got relationships. And then you have these, you may not know it, but I remember it well. There is this store that's in most common low-income communities called Badcock. Okay? Badcock, I hope nobody works for Badcock on here. Anyway, Badcock is not the best furniture store, right? And so, but when you go to Badcock, the first thing Badcock do, and this is marketing 101. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Hey, little man. Hey, little, but they speak to all the children. They speak to everybody in the group, and if they have candy or juice or water, they give everybody in the group something, some whatever they have, amenities. And so the first thing they say, so what brings you in today? And how is this and how is that? And let me tell you, they probably don't have anything on their mind but making that sale, but they take the time to connect with that family because they understand if I connect with them, I'm gonna make a sale today. And then what they're going to do is not only am I going to make a sale to them, I'm going to bring all of their family and friends. They're going to bring all their family and friends to me as well. Yeah, they get it. Oh, the bank won't give you a loan, or City Furniture won't give you credit. We'll give you credit. We'll charge you double, but we'll give you credit. Yes. So it's a ever evolving cycle. So this is some of the things you'll see in communities with poverty. You'll have jobs and money. You'll have illness, entertainment going to look different. Agency time. Shandra, what's agency time? I'm glad you asked. When it's time to go to apply for the SNAP, when it's time to go to apply for Florida Kids Care, when it's time to go apply for assistance, for food or for assistance if your utility bill is higher. And let me tell you this, and please, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me because I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. When I was pregnant with my daughter, before I did get a car, I still had to I had to catch the bus. Grateful for the leadership of Palm Tree, and now they're 10 times better than they were 24 years ago, because at that time the buses used to run every 2 hours. And I lived in Lake Worth trying to catch the bus to West Palm. And so there's many different things you're going to see in a community of low-income families than you would see in middle class and upper class. I'm sorry. Tell me when the last time you seen a pawn shop in Wellington?
Or Walmart in Boca, like in the really nice neighborhoods. You don't see you see a Walmart in really low income areas.
And once again, you guys, please don't shoot the messenger. I'm not here to make enemies. I need all friends. Okay, I'm not here to make enemies. It's an
That's terrific.
awareness. It is honest conversations we want to have. That's all. Okay. All right. So you're looking at certain businesses, common places, common activities. You know, a lot of times when we think of common activities, it could be, you know, simple gatherings, you know, during the holiday time before the pandemic. Some people still a little bit rebellious, but before the pandemic, family reunions was like what you look forward to because you were going to get a chance to see different family members or whatever. But it wasn't trips. But I guarantee you, if you open the book up and you read the FCAT and the Florida, whatever it was, those questions were as if those kids got past their street and have gone to London and Europe and, you know, Rome and all these places. Because in whoever the creator of the testing mindsets, they wrote it from their point of view. They never wrote it from a person in poverty's point of view. So why do you think the third graders was failing FCAT and then they're being retained and now people are picking on them because now they've stayed back a grade is what we call it. Okay. So I'm just giving us insight. I'm just giving us insight. I'm not validating poor choices. I'm not validating why people do what they do. But what I am saying, I can understand it. I can relate to it. It was just some part of my left brain that I was like, I'm not gonna do this. But what I do now is I educate people because we really need to have these honest conversations. That systems that we think, well, they should be grateful that they can get food stamps. They should be great. Not really, because it's a prisoner. It keeps them. It really is like a prison because what it does, it captivates them mentally. Because the minute you decide you want more, you got to do this. You either have to go for it and make the sacrifice and struggle, or stay to this and let me tell you what color you can paint your walls, if you can have anybody to stay with you that needs help or whatever. So it really is not in the best interest. Anchor for mental modern poverty is going to be relationships. Questions or comments? Tyranny of the moment. The need to act overwhelms any willingness people have to learn. A lot of times people can't think about 5 years from now. They're thinking about, am I going to have dinner for tonight? Are the lights going to be on? Am I going to get unemployed? And to forget the pandemic, because that adds more to it. And let me say this. Once anxiety hits, stress level go up, the common illness factors of high blood pressure and diabetes and all those things, what do you think happens to that? It spikes. Now you got someone missing work that don't have sick days and risk getting fired. Is that everybody's situation? No, some people are just lazy. But it's still a mental state for them to be that. I just don't know a parent that wakes up in the morning and say, you know what, I just want to be a bad parent. I don't care if my child doesn't graduate from high school, and I don't care if they don't get a scholarship from Take Stock in Children. I just don't think a parent wake up in the morning to say that in their mind. I do think a lot of times because what they've seen and what they've known or what they've experienced, it just makes them feel hopeless. Questions or comments? So in the middle class, you have achievement. A lot of times you have hobbies, you know, you find floral, you know, creation and painting or whatever. Then you have your civic clubs and you have careers, you have prevention, you have housing and asset. That's when you start, you know, creating asset for yourself and maybe 1 or 2 investment properties, maybe not. You look forward towards retirement. Notice I didn't say most of these things and from the mental model of poverty, because a lot of these jobs don't even have a 401k. They don't even have a retirement. You do vacations. You do other activities. You see law enforcement as friends and not enemies. Many different ways of thinking of it. And all I want to do is to bring an awareness. Questions or comments?
No.
Okay. How we're doing on time, Kim?
Let's see. We're doing well. It's 6:19 right now.
Okay.
So,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
I'll expedite through. Okay. So
Yep.
then here you have the mental model and wealth. It's about connection. You know the old adage saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, that's a whole lot of truth to it. Right? Give you one example, and I'm not gonna stay here. A lot of times, if you ever thought about it, I hate to say this, when you're going to an event and the people of wealth, if you don't get introduced, they already know you don't belong. Those one of those hidden rules. So you don't just say, hey, I'm so-and-so. 90% of the time, whoever you came with or however you got there, they're going to say, hi, meet my friend X, Y, and Z. You don't introduce yourself. Because if you do, they're going to know. You don't know the rule around here. Okay? We're going to talk about food. I'm a foodie. In poverty, they always going to say, did you get enough? You want more? In middle class, they're going to ask you, how did it taste? And with wealth, they could care less. They want to know, how did it look? Was it presentable? What kind of garnishment it has on it? Shandra, you being sarcastic. No, I'm not. This happens every single day. This is research. Self-evaluation. We don't have time to go through this, but I want you to think about it. This is the reasons why you think poverty exists. Most people will say, because people made a bad decision, they want to be poor. Do you think it can be solved? Or what action you think needs to happen? And for me, my thing is do my part. Educate and help. Educate and help. Educate and help. So here's what's a lot of times when you think about the research, they think about what is the cause of poverty. Hold on one second. Okay. All right, that's just somebody else. Looking at the cause of poverty, because we live in a class, three classes in America. Some of the systems, behaviors, meaning the individual have to take responsibility, absence of human and social capital, human exploitation, double charging everybody for everything. And then going back to relationships growing up, the corner store, which wasn't really the corner store, we would get credit. So the owners would say, oh, yes, we'll give your grandmother credit. And so if we didn't have money, they would let us buy the milk and they would let us buy the cheese or whatever. And so when her Social Security check came, because she was retired by this time, we would owe half of it to the corner store. Yeah, we probably could have did things different, but it was 11 of us, 11 grandkids, so she did the best she could. And then political and economic structure. Research is not wrong. This is my personal quote. The question is, how do we process the information found? What do you do about it? So here are some of the hidden rules. What are the hidden rules in each economic class? I just told you, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. It's, don't, what was I going to say? Don't assume that everybody have the same access. And we are talking about the stores. I can go from banks. I can go pretty much anything you can think of. You can break it down. What you see in one community, what you want to see in the other one. I'll give you a prime example. Now, this is research. This is not fictitious stuff that I've made up. They tell you that the better schools are in neighborhoods where home ownership is. If you think I'm wrong, look it up on HUD website. But you don't think we have issues. And let me tell you this, schools that are in low income communities where the kids walk to school or whatever, they don't have the PTAs, they don't have, the big donors that can write checks for computers and all those things. Now it looks a little different because of the pandemic now, but trust me, before then, it was not the same. And then how can you help foster a learning environment about the hidden rules? Know the rules. Be mindful of the rules, and then work around them. Driving force. You have your poverty, you have your middle class, and you have wealth. I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm not, however, wherever you are and wherever you find yourself in this training, it's up to you to evaluate yourself and ask yourself, what can you do different? And if you don't find any growth that you need, kudos to you. Time looks different with a person in poverty. Earlier, I talked about agency time. A lot of times people in poverty spend most of their day, trying to find other resources. Middle class is going to look different. I put the area there. Middle class is going to look different because you pretty much have control of your time. You can, even if you're on your job, you have vacation time, you have personal time, you have sick time. And then wealth, pretty much, they manage, they're in control of all of their time. Questions or comments?
There's some comments in the chat box.
Okay, hold on, let me see if I can get.
When students in poverty have to be creative with what little they have, the untold stories. I mean, the untold rules. Oh my goodness. It's true, education is key. Rural areas do not always get the same funding as urban areas when it comes to schools.
Yeah, never. Not something. Never. Never.
Yeah, time runs short to work and get another income.
Absolutely. So look at the language of the role of language, and I know our time is winding up. So the frozen language is language that is always the same, the Lord's Prayer, the reading vows. Many people don't even think about this. A lot of times when you interacting with your students, they may or may not know how to communicate with you because of the limit of language. So here, this is the number of words exposed to 3 million words, economic, welfare. People don't like that word, but that was the word that was used to do the research, okay? One affirmation, one for every 2 prohibitions. So I'll give you this example and then I'm gonna open it for questions and comments and we'll end here. In poverty, generally, if a parent is in the kitchen cooking and the child climbs up on a chair to look out the window, the child sees a bird. The first thing that mother 9 times out of 10 will say, get your behind down out that chair before you fall, and I gotta take you to the hospital. Because in that mother's head, if I take you to the hospital, they're gonna call DCF on me, I gotta miss time from work, I don't have the insurance. I mean, the list goes on and on. In the working class, 2 affirmations for every prohibition. You may say, oh, honey, get down and mommy will talk to you later about that bird, right? 45 words in a professional setting, 6 affirmations for every one prohibition. And what they may say, oh, it's a bird. What color is that bird? What sound does the bird make? And how does the bird look? What is the bird on? They have a whole dissertation about that one bird. And you may say, well, Shandra, well, we can't help that. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm just giving you an example of how people live from day to day. And I got introduced to this information, I want to say 2008, 2009. It changed my life forever. I was always a big educator because of my aunt, trying to protect me from my grandmother. But this really helped bring so much more of this home to me. And so when I tell people, okay, I'm just seeing things matter. When I tell people this, they're like, I never thought of that. So a lot of times when you work with your mentees, their language is going to be limited. Their language is different. My daughter laughs, she says, Mom, when you text me, you don't have to text full words. Use abbreviations. And I tell her, no, I can't. Because I have to always keep in the forefront of my mind when I'm working with individuals, if their language is limited, how I interact with them may spark something in them to change. And if I spark it in them, it may spark it in their children. One person, just one person could be the difference maker for an eternal generation. I grew up poor, but I'm not going to die poor. I make sacrifices every single day for my daughter in case something should happen to me before she reached 50. Now, if something happens to me after she gets 50, she's on her own. But because I just refuse to live how I grew up now that I have this information. Questions or comments?
We
So-
have some comments there. A positive role model leaves a path to be followed.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so when I started the conversation, what is resources? Many people said financial, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, support system, relationships with role models, knowledge of middle class and hidden hidden rules, integrity and motivation. These are the resources, because a lot of times in poverty, and I'm not, once again, this is not one size fit all. All patterns have exceptions, but when the majority speaks, the research don't lie. Questions or comments? Thank you guys for allowing me in your space for this period of time. Questions or comments?
Excellent. Really great insight. Thank you. Yes, are there any other comments or questions? I'm looking at the chat box here.
And you can
Thank
do
you.
way more research with ahaprocess.com. Dr. Ruby Paint is phenomenal. And let me just tell you something. Let me just be real transparent. Because I'm just an advocate reader. I don't read as much as I used to, but I just was so engaged to her in her research and her material, and I bought her book. I was reading it first, called The Framework Out of Poverty, because really they want you to transition your mind before you dive in deeper into a lot of her research. And I'm gonna be honest, when I turned to the back of the book and seen she was Caucasian, I was like, huh, because that's how I thought. How could somebody know what I'm going through and they don't look like me? Poverty doesn't necessarily have a race. So that was my aha moment, that, you know what, even me, myself, was biased and automatically think nobody can rate me unless they look like me. Questions or comments?
Sandra, how are you?
Hi.
I enjoyed your presentation, and I put questions in the chat or comments in the chats because I was relating to the students that I have had, and most of my mentees have been blessed. I'm not sure of their financial situation, but they always had parental support, and they were always encouraged by their parents. So I don't know about everybody else's mentees. And I was also saying, even parents in poverty, some do encourage their kids. I wasn't trying to negate what you were saying. I was just saying that some do.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, Sandra, that all patterns have exceptions. And that's part of those are part of some of the disclaimers, but I know we had a short time, so I couldn't put every disclaimer in there, because people will, they will say, oh, no, that's not what I know. And it's not for that, it's for the majority. And I can tell you, I worked with Take Soccer Children for like a few months, and I had the opportunity to work in the Glades. And I can tell you. No Goldberg. Oh, sorry. I can tell you it was like drawing blood. But I could understand because I knew this information. And so I worked around the clock with, making sure that the mentees and even recruiting mentors was like drawing blood.
And so and I can relate to that too. And I agree with your information that you shared, but I do wanted to say that students that I have had the opportunity to mentor, thank God, not to say that they are well off, but their parents seem to make sacrifices for them to get and have what they need.
Right. And so you're great. You're good. You're good. Any other comments or questions before we end our time together?
Yeah, many mentors through the years have questioned, when students are living, or in a nice home, or they're wearing certain brand names, with clothing, shoes, going on vacations. They do question, I don't understand how this could happen, and it was good insight that you gave us on that. And, you know, in vacations too, we just don't know, you know, if they're saving for that or it was given by another relative. I've heard that where trips have been given to them. So, you know, we have to be real careful not to judge quickly and,
Right.
and keep things in perspective.
Right. And then too, I can tell you what, you know, I don't know half of my life story by the time we get off of here. In 2001, I was diagnosed with systematic lupus and still suffer from some of the side effects, which I don't take the medication. Yay. But anyway, that was my life-changing moment. And I went on trip. I went to Rome. I went to London because you know what I thought? Well, I'm going to do this because I'm going to die. And so my last times on this earth, I want to enjoy it. And so, I mean, 19 years later, I'm still here, but it's just the mere fact. And so that's what I started with. And I'm never going to justify poor choices or bad decisions because I've made some. But in reality is we have to, for those that want it, we have to walk them through as much as possible. And it's a hard pill that you're working with the mentees and then they go home to the same environment. And so there's definitely opportunity for a parenting piece, but parents need, I wish you could see my phone in a given day when people call and talk about they need mentors. These are parents.
Yeah.
These are parents.
They need it. We had someone here, Ms. Stringer, I see the struggle in my mentees' parents, but there's so much love and encouragement.
Yes.
So, and you do have that as well. Yep.
And Audrey.
Can I say something?
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Audrey? Who is it?
Julia.
You're on mute. You're on mute, Audrey.
Okay, go ahead, Julia.
As I think as a mentor and everything that we've taken away from this workshop, I feel like we have to try to break the cycle for them, because what they're stuck in this mindset. Like Shandra was saying, they're stuck in this mindset and they see everybody around them in this circle that they're not going to get out like everybody else. And like you were saying, Rena Center, like showing them and telling them like, hey, you know, places like Rena Center and this and that, and because they don't teach that in school. They don't teach them about interest rates and how to pull out a car loan when you know, because I've had a student that was looking at a car with their parents, and I said, make sure that is an interest rate that is reasonable, that it's so on and so forth. And they're like, oh, I didn't know that. But it's just guiding them through life and just motivating them and showing them that it's possible to get out of this mindset that they're in.
And you know, it's good that you say that, you know, and again, let's go back to education, you know, and take stock in children. You know, we're about breaking the cycle of poverty and through education. And, you know, and I can speak about myself. Education is what broke it for me. And, you know, I'm first generation. And I've been through a lot, but, you know, it was my education that really came full circle for me with how I broke that, the way, you know, I grew up. But, you know, it is mindset. It's helping our kids get out of that negative, and that, you know, and I had parents that really encourage me, but a lot of our kids, sometimes they don't. And like you experienced, Shandra, how your grandma, you know, what she said to you every day, you know, and we don't know how many other kids in our program are hearing the same thing. So, you know, we have to be aware and keep all these, the insights that we learned tonight, and be aware of them and be sensitive to them, and have different perspectives.
Okay. And Audrey?
Yep. Hi, Shandra. Shandra is a friend of mine, and I can so vouch for everything that she's saying. Comes right from her heart and right from her experience and her own studies. And I'm so excited to see, Shandra, that you were going to be doing this presentation. What I just wanted to add was that I think sometimes some of us assume that it's the parents that have the most interest in these kids or the most influence with them. And my experience is that often it's a grandparent or an aunt or a cousin, and that we need to be really open to knowing that the parents may not play the same role that our parents played in our lives, or our you can't make any assumptions, and to ask that with a big question mark, because we really don't know who these kids really trust and who they're really listening to. And so that's just something I had to learn. So I figured I would try to share that with the group and see if Shandra agrees. Or
I totally agree, because my dad left me with my grandmother, but because my aunt stayed in front of her, because they have all this land in the country, she was the game changer for me. Yeah. She was the person at 4 years old. She told me never end a sentence with a preposition. And I'm like, well, what is a preposition? And what happened? I said, well, where is so-and-so at? I was asking for one of my cousins. And she was like, don't you ever end a sentence with a preposition? I'm like, what is a preposition? And so at 4, I knew what at meant. I knew don't ever end a sentence with at. And she was my dad didn't leave me with her. He left me with his mom. But you're absolutely right, because, but that goes back to what we talked about earlier, Audrey, is the relationship, that relationship. And it takes time.
Yes. Anyone else? Comments, thoughts, questions? All right. Well, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes. Thank you for being very transparent as well, sharing your experiences. And thank you for what you're doing, moving forward and making a difference in people's lives. So thank you.
All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Questions, mentors? Everyone good? You need anything, just a phone call away. All right.
Excellent. Thank you, Shandra.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.
Yes, that's right. I think it starts today, sundown, right?
I think so.
Yesterday.
Yesterday. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, yes.
No, today. I'm saying
Today.
yes.
Okay, I
today.
thought so.
Yes, yes, I was saying
She said
yesterday.
yesterday.
Yes, it is today.
All right, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank
Good
you.
night. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.